This is Fiendly here to talk about War of the Monsters, a game that exists. I also recorded a version with co-commentators, which I will be posting later on, but it was plagued with technical difficulties when we recorded it. It's going to take a very long time to edit, so once that's completed, I'll get it posted. If you want an informational nerd commentary video, you're in the right place. If you want more of a casual chat that occasionally goes off topic, look for the co-commentated version in the video description once it's ready. So this is an Incognito Entertainment game, the company that made Twisted Metal Black, and eventually made the Twisted Metal remake that I'm currently Let's Playing. This was the follow-up to Twisted Metal Black in many ways. They also released a Twisted Metal Small Brawl immediately after, but this was the first game developed after. Small Brawl was developed in tandem with Black. And it's a huge departure for them in many ways. What I really enjoy about this game is the complexity of the storyline. Because we're about to fight monsters. We're about to be a monster fighting other monsters. But the whole plot is aliens attack the Earth, and were defeated, and then monsters suddenly appeared. Completely unrelated, as far as anyone knows. The game will ultimately have no plot whatsoever, so it is very bizarre that the backstory is this involved and unrelated to the events of the game. I've always likened it to being like the third game in a trilogy where the plot is really gone off the rails. They've lost the thread of where they started. But there are no preceding games, they just skip to just everything being off the rails right away. Which I certainly appreciate. It's whole new territory for these developers. They mostly make games with cars. And we're going to see how that became something that they relied upon when they made this game. But here's our cast. There are 2 unlockable bonus characters, but we don't need them. We need Agamo or Agamo. None of the characters talk in this game, so I don't know how that's supposed to be pronounced. But we're playing as that guy. We'll be starting off in a parody of King Kong. The whole theme of the game is parodies of classic monster movies. Mostly 50s sci-fi fare. Which is one of the things it does the most correctly. I really, really, really like the presentation that they have for War of the Monsters. We've skipped right to the climax of King Kong. But this time, the gorilla wins. The city needs us to arrive and kill the gorilla for them. But we don't look like we did on the character select screen. This is the unlockable alternate skin for Agamo. And it's the whole reason I'm doing this as part of a Twisted Metal Let's Play as a bonus video. Because we can look like Sweet Tooth as a robot. This is unlocked by having a completed save of Twisted Metal Black on your memory card and booting up War of the Monsters. And it can also be unlocked on the PS4. I think you have to buy the digital downloads of both games and do the unlockables correctly. But regardless, we've got it here. The building there got knocked down by Kongar is the name of this enemy. Cleverly enough. When we destroy buildings, they will collapse in one of 3 different ways. There's one of the main ways, they just become like a shattered husk. Basically the facade of the building will be destroyed, but the building itself will remain standing. Some buildings will collapse straight down on themselves, like in Rampage, but in fast motion. Just leave debris on the ground, as though they were hollow. And a very small, select few buildings will collapse just to the side, and those can be used to crush your opponents. Or yourself if you're not careful. But the vast, vast majority of the buildings will just become as the one to our right there. Still standing, just uglier. And it's entirely scripted. The buildings will fall apart in the exact same way every time you attack them. This intro level is just that, an intro. Very easy, one enemy, real quick. The level is also very small and not very involved. Aside from that one building that falls over, nothing much going on. Now we're on to a Godzilla parody with Togera here. More of a 1997 Godzilla than the classic Godzilla, unfortunately. Because we're in a Las Vegas analog. Not sure how this game is coming across so far, but from the footage, probably looks like it's pretty fun. And it certainly can be fun, but for the most part, a lot of the gameplay is really, really tedious, I hate to say. There are a lot of flaws. One of the big ones is the camera. It sort of follows behind my back no matter what I do. The right analog stick. It doesn't turn the camera, it turns your character. This changes when an enemy is right next to you, like in a very, very small radius from where you're standing. Then it changes to like the sort of camera you would expect from a third-person action game. But they didn't do that for the entire game. Really, it plays like you're driving a car. Like the camera is locked behind you, as it would be in a Twisted Metal game. It takes a lot of getting used to, and a lot of the times it'll still just swing around wildly, because it is unnatural. This game was developed in 2002, released in very early 2003, which puts it right around the same time as The Mark of Kree, which I only mention because The Mark of Kree had this ridiculous system where the right analog stick would sweep around to target enemies, and that was how they controlled the camera. Just have the AI sort of automatically control it, and it really barely worked. It was the most awkward thing about that game, and that's because the early 2000s were still very early in general 3D gaming. So they were having a really, really hard time figuring out how cameras should work. Wasn't until a little while after this that having the right analog stick control your camera became the standard way to do things. And this game suffers pretty badly for not having that standard to work with just yet. The controls are all very, very slow and sluggish, which for the most part is a design choice. We're playing as a gigantic monster in order to have the sort of impact that they want to have with every swing. They gotta make you move real, real slow. In a lot of ways it works, but when you're duking it out with enemies, the AI has some rude tactics that will take advantage of your slowness in ways that can make the solo campaign not very fun. Once they get to red health, they will run away from you. Just automatically. Run for their lives and gather up all the health pickups that are in the area. Then fight you again once they've gotten back to green health. That can make these fights drag out forever. Obviously, I've come up with some ways of compensating for that. You really just gotta hold back until the enemy gets to red health, then hit him with everything you got. Hit him with specials, grab stuff and throw it at them. Just make sure they die before they can get their health back. Here's a nice parody of the film Them. Perhaps the first time in American history that a pronoun was meant to incite terror in the masses. So we have to fight a horde of gigantic ants. And it's ridiculously easy because they take 2 or 3 punches each to be killed. They're by far the weakest enemies in the game, these ants. There are, I think, 8 of them that they make you fight. But usually one special will put them right into the red. One combo will kill them outright. This obviously is not the level that they have planned for us. If the movie poster wasn't an indication enough. This level is a boss fight against a much larger robot than ourselves. And it introduces itself by staying well out of our range and throwing volleyballs at us. We can catch them if our timing is correct. Here we go. And that's the only way we can deal damage to the boss. Collect its orbs and return them at a high velocity. Kinda boring. Pretty easy once you get the timing down. We do have a ranged attack. If an enemy is outside of our range and we try to press the punch button, it will instead fire a rock. And each of the playable characters has their own unique ranged attack, which is pretty neat. But it's ineffective against this boss, until now. Now that it's on the ground, we can fight it with our fists, or our rocks, or really anything we want to hit it with. Fighting it this way, you know, the way that makes the most sense, is an awful, awful idea. It will take forever, and the boss will be very, very dangerous, and will probably kill you. We're not gonna do that anymore. I'm gonna run away, climb this pillar over here, and get this rock. This thing is the key to victory. Kinda thought I'd be safe on top of the pillar from that attack. Obviously not. Gotta get the boulder again, which is really, really difficult. It takes up almost the entire pillar, so you can't really stand on anything while picking up the rock. But once you have it, you can stun lock the boss forever. Just hit it with the boulder, pick up the boulder again, repeat. It's so overpowered and ridiculous that I am intentionally letting the boss show off a couple more of its attacks before I just combo it. In particular, I wanted to show off this really awful attack that, well, in my original recording attempt, this is a re-recording, I got to this boss and let it show off its spinning top attack, and then it just repeatedly did that over and over again until I died. And you have 3 lives in order to beat this boss. It killed me 3 times in a row. Didn't manage to kill it. And that was with the rock hanging out. If you let this boss get out of control, you're dead. It's very, very rude for the first real challenge of the game. It won't start doing this top attack until it gets at relatively low health, though. So I'm gonna beat on it for a little while longer. I've now done a couple of air recoveries. In order to do that, you have to get hit first, but while you're sailing through the air, when your shoulders are parallel to the ground, that's when you have to hit the L2 button, and you will immediately recover, fall to the ground, take less damage. It's great. But if you fail to do that, you waste a lot of time. And here's the spinning top attack. He's just gonna spin all around the arena really, really fast, dealing a lot of damage. You can't punch him. You have to either use a special or hit him with a rock. Only way to stop that attack. And it goes on forever. It's like 20 seconds long. And it can hit you over and over again. Even if you're flashing invincible, it will still hit you and deal its full damage. It'll kill you real fast. So just repeatedly hit him with the rock. If I didn't think there was some kind of value in showing off this terrible boss fight, I would have just immediately rocked his world over and over again. Not even bothered letting him move. But I think we got the full experience without getting killed by this thing. It's not even a good design or sci-fi archetype or anything, really. Sort of one of those 50s robot things, but there's a playable character that is much better at being a 50s robot. So that thing is just better forgotten. And on to the creeping chaos. Time to meet what is obviously my favorite character, Praetor. The humans have the same idea as us. Unleash another monster to attack the monster that is destroying their city. But Mecha Congar is just going to also destroy the city. They didn't program him very well or something. And really, both monsters are just going to fight us. Right there, I did a counter, because both the enemies are ganging up on me here. If you very precisely time your block, you will counter the enemy attack. More precisely, you hold the block, and you attack at the same time that the enemy attacks you. It'll stun them briefly, allow you to counterattack. A lot of this game is about very precisely timed reactions to the enemy's actions. Once you master all the timings on those, the gameplay becomes much faster and more fun. But it is very unintuitive. The tutorials just don't exist there to tell you to do any of that. It's hard to learn, and you do not have to learn it. If you just brute force your way through this game and slowly chase after all the enemies until all of the health pickups are gone, you will eventually win just by hammering X over and over and over again for hours and hours. You will have exactly zero fun, but you will complete the game. The Congar enemy was very easily dispatched because, even though he has higher health, he cannot fly as Praetor can. There were many giant mantis movies back in the 50s. I think one of them was just called The Deadly Mantis. Could be remembering that wrong, but I know MST3K did it. Obviously this one, once she gets away from you, it is a mess. She will fly away for a very long time. But she has much lower health than all the other playable characters. So just hammer on her once she gets in the red. Praetor is the only female character in the game, by the way. I think they're going for the old female mantises devour the male mates, which it is becoming increasingly believed is a myth. Rather, it does happen, but only in the stressful situations induced by scientific observation. So in the wild, mantises and black widows and the like do not devour each other during mating, but when they're stressed out, they do get violent, and their hunting instincts kick in immediately. And the females usually devour the males because sexual dimorphism benefits the females. They're much larger and stronger than the males, so they usually win the battle there. It's much closer in the case of mantises, though, and in many cases, both partners have been decapitated in the mating process under these unfortunate circumstances. Entomology is coming a very, very long way in a short period of time, now that people sort of care about bugs and aren't just disgusted by them. But that probably doesn't include anyone watching this video. I'm just weird. Anyway, we're fighting dragons. This is a monster called Ratzo, I believe. It is one of the unlockable bonus characters, because it has the same amount of health as most of the other monsters, but it can fly like Praetor. So this is a very, very monster, and they are making us fight two of it at the same time. This is a battle that can wage for an extremely long time. I think even in this recording, where I did it pretty efficiently, it took a long time because they just fly away, they get all the health pickups very easily. Not a ton you can do about it. Our ranged attack does just pitiful damage. It's really only good for landing that killing blow while the enemy is trying to escape from you. Also, your ranged attacks, they take up your energy. The blue bar down below my character icon. Your energy slowly regenerates, and doing combos on the enemies will also regenerate your energy. And those blue orbs that I'm picking up there, they will refill your energy. When you have a full energy bar and you continue to gain energy, your bar will then start to slowly fill up red. When it fills up all the way red, you gain another use of your special. But you can only have one use of your special locked in reserve at any given time, as indicated by the red box underneath the health bar. That'll tell us whether or not we can use the special at any given time. And there's also glowing red orbs that will immediately refill your special. But there we go, I got my energy back up to full red. Gave me another use of the special. And we have two specials, as do all the other characters. One of them is just a huge shockwave. Very short range, but pretty effective. The other one is when you've seen Agamo rip off his head here. I'll just call him Sweet Tooth. When you see Sweet Tooth rip off his flaming head. And unfortunately, that special is awful. It turns your head into a bomb that will leave a pool of fire that will catch the enemy on fire. However, it explodes on a very delayed timer, and nothing will make that timer go faster. If you hit the enemy and the head immediately exploded, it would be an amazing special. Because there are weapons you can pick up like that. There are gas cars and stuff like that you can throw at enemies. They immediately explode. The best weapons in the game. But our head only does that way, way after we rip it off. And the timing on it to get it to explode on an enemy is impossible. I've literally never seen it happen. So that's awful. Agamo also has a very bad charging ability. All the enemies have, if you double tap forward, they can run briefly and do a charging attack. Sweet Tooth here is the absolute worst in the game. So in my opinion, Sweet Tooth is the worst character. in this entire game. But I have to play as him because this is technically bonus content for a Twisted Metal Let's Play. So I gotta keep it vaguely technically relevant. Here we are on what I assume is a parody of 3 Mile Island. The reactor in the center, if you stand under, you get infinite energy until it stops spewing energy. But I was able to use a bunch of specials in a row. Kill these Kineticlopses who keep coming because they'll just spawn infinitely. The whole thing we're supposed to do here is destroy the other reactors. This one here, and the 3 or 4 that are also around the rim of the main reactor. Once those are destroyed, the core will melt down, and the Kineticlopses will stop spawning. We can also press a button that will cause the central reactor to vent its poisonous fluids. That will deal a bunch of damage to any enemies caught in the center. But they're pretty tenacious. They're gonna stick to me, so it's not gonna do anything here. If we were to be playing against human opponents, they would probably get hit with the environmental attack, but that is not the case. I believe this is our last reactor. Our character will auto-lock on with enemies in the nearby area, causing it to miss the reactor, but it's all over now. Meltdown imminent. Vent poisonous gases. N. Level's not over, of course. The core meltdown has caused a plant to become horribly mutated. Yeah, it doesn't make a ton of sense, but here we go. Anything to squeeze another boss fight in, I guess. This I consider to be the worst boss fight in any video game besides the Devil May Cry reboot. There was some disagreement on the subject in the co-commentated version of this video. In fact, they thought the robot that we fought as the first boss was a worse boss fight than this one. I vehemently disagree, because I've had to play this boss several times. It is not good. You cannot, under any circumstances, make it go faster. The only thing you can do is make it go slower by getting eaten. I did it there intentionally, just to show it off. Doesn't mean I'm not going to do it again later in the fight. But, had to see it at least once. After it does its gaping maw attack, it'll spin tendrils around on the floor. They are unavoidable. You have to get hit with some of them. They'll drain a bit of your health. The acid vomit also is mostly unavoidable. You can't dodge every single volley. You can block it for reduced damage. But if you do that, you will block with the weapon that you're holding, the piece of the reactor that I've got in my hand there, and it will break from the attack. So you'll have to pick up a new one and very quickly whip it into the mouth while it's open. I really do not want to risk extra cycles in this boss fight, so I just tank the damage, make sure I have a weapon in hand at all times, so that I can always hit the mouth as soon as it opens. Speed things up just a little bit. You definitely don't want to attack early though, because then it'll just do nothing. And absolutely nothing else we can do will deal any damage whatsoever to the open mouth of the boss. So you just gotta wait it out. It's really, really, really terrible. But we got a second head down. Now to just do 2 more cycles on the final head. I tried to minimize the damage by doing my rush attack here, but it caused me to get too close to the pedals, which will flop open and deal a bunch of damage, make you fly and lose the weapon you're holding. That could be a problem if you're trying to dodge the acid and you get too close like I just did. Now I have no weapon, and here comes the maw. Yep. So that sucks. A fun quirk with the Sweet Tooth skin here is that it will randomly cackle with kind of an irritating deep voice. It's unique to the Sweet Tooth skin, but it is uncontrollable. I don't have like a cackle button that I am pressing every so often to entertain myself and annoy you. It's just unstoppable. I can do nothing to control it. The dragon enemy that we fought in the previous level, they also have a big shriek that they do at random intervals. I think those are the only 2 monsters in the game that just randomly shout. I think other ones will make noises, but those will be based on attacks. Just another annoying thing about this game. They put extra effort into making it just a little bit more annoying. Yep, that is worthy of the celebration animation. Let us get away from that thing. And conspicuously save our game for the first time. In this next level, I'm going to be doing something unique. The battle is not something I'm interested in whatsoever. But it's going to introduce it to us anyway. Let's meet Robo 47. Also, the aliens are back. That sign for a cola on the wall there. It says sack, but because of the low resolution, it looks like it says fuck. I don't know. Neither one is a very good parody of Coca-Cola, but honestly, I prefer the latter. If they just randomly had a billboard that said fuck in this game, I'd be pretty into it. I don't know if that was even legal on the PS2 era, though. I know they got away with the occasional shit in PS2 games, but I don't remember any F-bombs. I'm sure Manhunt had a lot of them, now that I think about it. But they were pretty uncommon. Twisted Metal Black censored their F-bombs, awkwardly. And as you can see, I'm running away from the robots and instead stomping on trees, crushing all the boathouses at the docks, and destroying billboards. I'm fighting pretty much everything but the 2 robots. They're certainly gonna try and stop me. They desperately want to fight me. But I'm not gonna do it. The occasional special to get them off my back is useful. And it destroys some of the buildings, but you don't want to destroy the buildings too quickly. Primarily what I really want to focus on is stomping those trees and the billboards. There is a very weird and obscure Easter egg in this level specifically. And it is possible to miss it if you just destroy the buildings willy-nilly. So back here we got this grotto. It has a lot of trees that we want to destroy. A bunch of pillars that we can destroy. There's a formation in the center. There it is. I'm gonna call it the gazebo for lack of anything better to call it. It's not really a gazebo, but just remember, the gazebo, it is important. For reasons that I'm going to not show off because I forgot about them during the recording. Meanwhile, keep destroying environmental objects. It is believed this game is not very well researched or documented. It's not very popular. But the best theories that people have come up with is that the Easter egg triggers when you get sufficiently high battle points. You've seen at the end of each level it is collected my battle points. Those are an in-game currency that you can use to buy secret characters, alternate skins, stuff like that. They are based on how much stuff you destroy. So, the best theory is you get high enough battle points, then you destroy the buildings, then something cool happens. So it must be the case that if you destroy certain buildings, you only get battle points worth the building's value. You do not get any billboards that might have been destroyed in the process, nor any trees or whatever. So it is possible to miss battle points because I had a run where I destroyed literally every single destructible object in this entire level, and I did not get the Easter egg. It might also be the case that if the enemy destroys something, you don't get the battle points for it. But regardless, it is possible to miss what I'm about to show you. And at this point, I've destroyed pretty much all the trees, pretty much all the billboards. I think there's 2 more billboards that I'm going to go find and destroy later. But it seems like those sorts of things are worth the most battle points, simply because there's so many of them. So you want to focus on those, destroy as many as possible. Then start body slamming the buildings like I'm doing right now. Those are both worth a lot of points. Well, a decent amount of points. So they add to the score that you need here. And even if you reach the battle point threshold purely on destructible trees and billboards and the like, you have to destroy at least one building as the final trigger to get the event to occur. So I am near the point threshold that I need. The enemies destroyed that building for me. Just crumbled it to bits underneath me. And they do grab attacks on me. The enemies love to grab you. When you try to grab them, it's actually really difficult because the grab animation is very, very slow. But when you're blocking, which is often a good idea, the enemy's first instinct will be to grab you, break that block. Then you have to slam buttons to get them to release the grab. More often than not, they will just throw you against the wall, deal a bunch of damage. Another one of the ways that the AI is very irritating. There's all sorts of hilarious theories about how to make the event in this level occur. Some people believe you have to destroy every single tree, stomp all of them, which is very, very tedious. Not to say that this method isn't tedious, but we've just about wrapped it up. Once I crush 1 or 2 more buildings over in this corner here, there we go. It has begun. And there it goes. An earthquake has just destroyed the vast majority of this level. This is something you would never see in a casual playthrough of this game. You have to know it exists and spend an extra, 5 minutes grinding it out. But in the meantime, I did do enough damage to one of the robots that got it down into the red. Used my special to knock it off into the abyss, which deals a decent amount of damage. I knocked the second one off into the abyss, and it is still in the green, though. So you can't really rely on that. It's also very easy to fall in yourself, because almost the entire level is gone. The whole main part of the level is just completely collapsed. Very, very hard to navigate. And this is where the gazebo that I was talking about comes into play. During the earthquake, it too collapsed dead on itself. And in doing so, turned into a button that we can slam into to activate an environmental attack. Like the molten lava from the reactor core in the last level. In this case, it would vent a bunch of gas into the collapsed part of the level. Cover most of it with steam that would damage any enemies, including yourself, hanging out in this area. It really covers like this entire section. Pretty much makes this already extremely hard to navigate level impossible to navigate. All you can do is hang out in the corners and wait for it to end. It's decent if you manage to trap an enemy in there, but yeah, it's not great. I don't really like it. So yeah, I didn't do it strategically, and also because I forgot about it. But you can see over in the wall directly in front of me is one of the vents that would be spraying steam right now. There's way, way more of them that we didn't see. And as soon as I focused on the battle, it very rapidly came to an end. We got 8,000 battle points, which is double what most of the other levels have been worth. Pretty much only the boss fights are going to be worth more than that. And I think even the boss fights are only worth about 6k. You get a lot of bonus points for those. And there's our character, Agamo, fighting a nearly identical character called Magmo. According to the instruction manual, those two characters are nemeses, because they are so similar. The instruction manual for this game is actually quite good. It is presented as a special edition of a newspaper, specifically about the rampaging monsters, which would obviously be rather newsworthy were it occurring in real life. And it kind of awkwardly works in like how to do blocking attacks and whatnot, but it gets the job done. And it's written in a sort of 1950s style, this just in sort of way. It's a pretty cool in-universe instruction manual thing, which I always appreciate. Also, the game came with a poster of the movie poster with Congar from the first level. Obviously, all the movie posters in this game are very, very good. Just wonderfully visually designed. Obviously, this game was a labor of love. And it is quite unfortunate that it turned out so awkward, because the developers were working sort of outside their area of expertise, adapting it as best they could to this new type of game. More of a standard fighting game than the card combat game they're used to. War of the Monsters was very well received when it originally came out. People did like it quite a bit, is my understanding. So it's mostly just a matter of it having aged poorly, because of things like the awkward camera being a relic of its time. So that's kind of unfortunate, but I mean, you can buy it on the PS4. It looks a lot sharper than what we're seeing, but the general visual design is still very blocky. So it doesn't necessarily look better, just sharper. It gets to be a fun game once you've played a lot of it. You start to get the hang of the timing, and you pick a character that you really like, or you get stuck playing as Sweet Tooth, which is the worst character in the game, as I've said before. But the timings for all the attacks are different, which is very, very important because timing is everything in this game. If you, like, punch an enemy at the exact moment that they're punching you, that will also trigger a counter. All comes down to very precise timing and mastery of your specific character, which gives things a very, very poor first impression despite the extremely good presentation of everything. Very unfortunate. I did want this game to be my follow-up to the Twisted Metal Black Let's Play, because it was the follow-up to Twisted Metal Black IRL. But it was not to be. I really would not have had a good time playing through this game over and over again with every separate character. Oh yeah, also there are unique combos for every single monster in this game. I don't know if they have unique animations because I did not bother to learn any of them. But they definitely have unique button inputs for each combo for every separate monster. It would take forever to learn all of them. Really would not want to go through the trouble of doing that for a full LP. That's 2 lava monsters extinguished. Moving on to Japan. Glorious Nippon. We are going to fight some mecha anime monsters. If I'd done an LP, the thread title would have been Pacific Rim Ain't Got Shit on Me. Because it's robots and monsters and King Kong. They seem to really like doubling up the robots. They did it with Robo 47, and now they're doing it with this guy, Ultra 5 it's called. Because it is the 5th in a series of robots that protect Japan from monster attacks. This whole character is actually kind of a little bit racist. And this level, it's the only level whose name I know off the top of my head because of an Easter egg we're about to see. This level is called Sunopolis. And once I get this robot off my back, I'll get to the top of this building here. Find something to throw and whip it at this mothership over here. It shoots a Independence Day laser at the ocean, which causes a tsunami to hit Tokyo. Because what is Japan known for? Natural disasters. I guess it does happen, but it's a little not something to be joking about. But this is the Twisted Metal Black team we're talking about here. All this building destruction like a year after 9/11. In fact, this game probably would have started development within months of 9/11. It's a little tasteless. Most games in this time period were scaling back on the building destruction, like censoring airplanes out of the game, stuff like that. Not this game. Still knocking over buildings left and right, crushing our enemies. And right here, it just died abruptly for no discernible reason. That's some kind of glitch. I've never seen it happen before. But because the building we knocked over killed the first Ultra 5, it somehow killed the second one. Not complaining, got that level over after I'd shown off everything I needed to show off. And then we got abducted. So it's off to space. The aliens are mostly irrelevant to this game story, but they still make use of them. Unlike Twisted Metal, the first Twisted Metal game proved that aliens exist as part of its plot. Yet, the aliens do not reappear in future games. With one exception. Twisted Metal 3. Kind of non-canon to the Twisted Metal series. Anyway, outer space. Into the real mothership. And we fight 3 Kang and Kodos aliens. These are a secret unlockable character. Totally forget their name. Something like Zorgulon. That may even be it. Doesn't matter. They are brains, Mars Attack style squid guys. An amalgamation of 2 or 3 50s parody movies. And because there's 3 of them, they gave them reduced health. So this fight can be very, very quick. But also these are... they've turned up the AI as high as it will go at this point. Because we're right near the end of the game. So they will play very, very defensively. Block every single attack coming at them. They're just living brains, so they fight very smart. I guess. As you've noticed at this point, this game has no plot whatsoever. We're not working on behalf of anybody. We're not trying to stop the enemy monsters. We just want to fight them. We're just kind of a mindless killing machine. Destroying the humans and armies and militaries of the world. It's great fun. But we just really want to pointlessly fight other monsters. And so we have done. We have fought all the monsters. Now we are fighting aliens. I think another one of the reasons that this game is kind of forgotten isn't just that it aged poorly, it's because there were a bunch of Godzilla games that were also on the PS2 and GameCube era. This is really blending in with those. Matter of fact, I am not entirely sure I knew this game existed. I feel like I had heard of it and got it completely confused with one of the 2 or 3 Godzilla games that were out at the exact same time. And assumed it was just another terrible third-person fighting game. Rather, a 3D fighting game. Which is, in general, a pretty bad format. This is at least better than most games in that format. Deeply flawed as it is. It has a vision, has a good sense of humor to it. Some of its design choices are really, really good. The camera that I've been complaining about is actually something they spend a lot of time figuring out and mastering, which is how you can tell that camera technology for video games was very, very primitive at the time, because this is the best they could do. But the way that it sort of becomes a cinematic camera when you get close enough to an enemy, that is pretty advanced for this era of gaming. And it's even more impressive in split-screen multiplayer, because when you get close to your fellow players, it stops being split-screen, the split goes away, and it just becomes a cinematic view of the entire combat. Pretty well developed for multiplayer that probably no one was ever going to play. And they tried to implement it in the single player to sort of a lesser effect. Anyway, the spaceship that we crashed in on is now a gigantic boss enemy with an unstoppable laser. Just nothing you can do about that laser. It's going to hit you. It deals enough damage to destroy any of the pillars, so even if you hide behind the pillar, it will burn through the pillar and continue to damage you before the attack ends. Then afterwards, the shield goes down. You can do an attack or two, but if you try to melee attack it, it will electrify you, as we saw, and throw you across the room and deal a bunch of damage. So you have to throw fire trucks at it, or your ranged attack, or your special. Can't deal very much damage per cycle. I said this in the co-commentated version of this video. It's kind of the worst of the two previous bosses right here. Long periods of invincibility and unstoppable mega attacks that deal a ton of damage. Even if you block this laser, it still does full damage to you. It's pretty rude. If I had to call out a single specific thing that is the absolute worst thing about War of the Monsters, I'd say it's the boss fights. Particularly the middle one, but this one is also very bad. For the first phase, I wouldn't have minded if that first phase was maybe a cycle or two shorter, but once it's over, things improve. I wouldn't say they improved too drastically, though. This phase, we are meant to just grab a piece of the ship that is now lying on the ground and whip it at the cockpit that has freed itself from the larger ship. You do that over and over again, then it comes and hits you with an eye laser. Completely unavoidable. It'll hit you, stun you for a little while, but you can get 3 hits in per cycle before it gets ya. And then you just repeat. Pretty pointless, but it's over quickly enough. Obviously the health bar was still half full though. So now the brain is free. It's gonna come at us with its own claws. It's got very fast combo attacks. And as soon as it gets within range, it'll do its ballerina spin, deal a bunch of damage. The first few hits, as soon as it lands one, the rest are unblockable. You just have to take them. But before it does the final coup de grace hit, then you can set up your block and at least avoid a lot of the damage. If your timing is really good, you can also counter that last hit and then get in your own combo. It's kind of unnecessary though. This part at least is a fight, but it is exclusively about stun locking. The boss tries to stun lock you, and when it fails to do so, you stun lock it. Literally all I'm doing right now is hammering X over and over again. My hand isn't even on the analog stick. Eventually beat him into the end of the arena, which shocks us both. Then I repeat the combo. There we go. Not much to that final phase, but it is a fight, which makes it the best boss fight in the game. And then it keeps going. Nope, sequel hook. We missed our chance to stomp that brain once and for all. Sweet Tooth was too scared, shaking in his boots. But here's our ending that we get for beating the game. Rather, it is the beginning of our character. We became a gigantic monster when a tribal Polynesian man fed the alien jet fuel to our Moai head. Funny enough, it was discovered that the Moai heads on Easter Island do have gigantic stone bodies underneath the earth. So I guess this is a reference to that or something. Yep, the endings are terrible. Or rather, they're good, they're well animated, and they're kind of funny. But they're not endings, they're origins. So if I had done this as an LP, I would have opened each video with the origin of the monster involved, because it's anticlimactic to have it at the end. Not too much you can do about that, though. And that is War of the Monsters, obviously. You know, perfectly fine game. Hasn't aged too well, but it is what it is. David Jaffe's sole credit is as concept. He came up with the original concept, which is why it's just Twisted Metal with monsters. And I'd like to think that with his game design expertise, it might have been better if he had worked on it himself. I don't know what he was doing that he didn't. God of War was the next game that he put out, and that was in 2005. I don't know if it was in development for 3 straight years, but I doubt it. If you want to see more behind-the-scenes footage of the developers, like we're seeing right here, the PAL version of this game has a little making-of featurette, 7 minutes long, but it's something. And of course, it's on YouTube now, because it's just a video. I'll link that in the video description. It's worth watching, I think. Shows you how much of a labor of love this game was. Gives you a sense of some of the ideas that went into it. Oh, also, if nothing else, the music in this game is very, very good. Very dramatic, and there are 2 music tracks for the dynamic music. So that's well done. And I think the visual design is well done, the concept art that we're seeing here. Good stuff. The reason the PAL version has that featurette is because it does not have the Sweet Tooth skin that we just played as. The PAL version of Twisted Metal Black was censored to hell, and I assume they just didn't want people to have to go buy that crappy version of the game. So they took it out, replaced it with something, at least, a consolation prize. And now we can enjoy both of those things if we so choose. I'm gonna go edit the co-commentated version of this exact same video so that I can have that posted in like a week. It's seriously going to take that long to edit. But for now, that is more than enough War of the Monsters for me. I will humbly request that you continue watching my Twisted Metal Let's Plays.